Most of us were taught that history in this part of the world practically began in 1492, and the impression was left that the Americas pre-Columbus were mostly wilderness with an occasional group of wild Indians but little else. We now know that this was not true, and that as we travel, commute, or paddle, we may pass rolling hills, farmlands, and small towns, which seems like they have always been there, but in fact are very recent. So it is hard to imagine a time predating our own when up to 50 million people occupied and heavily modified the landscape of the Americas, and that many of our farm fields were cleared and planted with different crops long before our ancestors arrived. We don't realize that one of the greatest catastrophes humankind has ever known took place all around us, and that within a relatively short time after 1492, as much as 90% of the native population was wiped out. That means that somewhere around 45 million people may have perished. It is now clear that millions succumbed to a combination of European diseases and genocide. Of course, these figures are only guesstimates, and most of the evidence has long since disappeared. So it can be startling when we are confronted with the evidence of our predecessors' widespread and pervasive presence. This is the case when one visits Aztalan in southern Wisconsin on the Crawfish River, not far from Madison.
Site and the civilization that built it. And this is it's a fabulous site. It's a premier archaeological site in Wisconsin. There is literally nothing like this in the whole upper Midwest. What you see here was a town, not a village, but a formal year-round permanent town that probably existed in the spot for 75 years, 100 years, right in there. The civilization we call Mississippians. We don't know what they call themselves, and there's probably not a one word that described all of them. Mississippians were a group of people who shared a number of unique customs and religious beliefs, and were united that. But it's more like Mississippians were more like Europeans. That is, a number of religions, customs unify them, but in them you have different languages, different identities, and so on. The site that these people came from to build this town was a city called Cahokia. I mean a city, a Native American city in southern Illinois, and you can see portions of it today, that had at 1100 AD up to 20,000 people living in the city, which means it was larger than London was at 1100 AD.
As I listened to Bob Birmingham and explored the site of Aztalan, I realized that I've seen cultures that even today share some aspects of Aztalan. So I went back to some old video. First is video of some African homes in Zambia and Malawi. The buildings were built with almost the same technology described at Aztalan and are still in use throughout much of Africa. Mud wattle construction, roofed with thatching in round and square configurations, would seem to be almost the same. In addition, we know that the Mississippians used dugout canoes, and such canoes are still in use in much of Central and South America as well as Africa. Seeing these videos again helps me to visualize a little of what Aztalan must have been like. Visiting the site, followed by a paddle on the Crawfish, is well worth the time.